What if I told you that money, yes, cold hard cash, is not the sacred currency of love that most men believe it to be? That no matter how much you invest, how many dinners you pay for, or how lavish your gifts, you can still lose the very woman you chase. The paradox is brutal. Men who do everything right, in the classic sense, providing, protecting, proving their worth financially, often find themselves abandoned, confused, powerless. Why? Because money, as a signal, isn't the ultimate measure of love. It's merely one piece, an incomplete cipher in a deeper biological code that most men don't even realize they're trying to crack. For decades, society's loudest messages hammered into men's brains have been simple: success equals attraction. Earn more, spend more, impress more. But beneath this surface lies a darker, more complex truth rooted not in culture, but in biology. Love, real, magnetic, primal attraction, is governed by ancient neurochemical symphonies and deeply ingrained evolutionary logic. Not just dollar signs. Hidden within the female brain are hardwired mechanisms that measure a man's value, not by his bank balance alone, but by the subtle and often invisible signals he broadcasts: confidence, dominance, unpredictability, and most importantly, the assurance of genetic fitness. Money can buy comforts, but it cannot buy these irreplaceable signals. Science has peeled back layers of illusion to reveal a biological fact: women's attraction systems evolved under pressures vastly different from modern economic structures. They respond to signals tied to survival and reproductive advantage: dopamine, oxytocin, pheromones. These chemicals dance in her brain and body, triggering attraction not to the wallet, but to the man who promises strength in the chaos, security without neediness, and passion precisely because he is not fully hers to tame. This dynamic is the secret many men never see coming. No amount of flashy spending can replace the magnetic charge of a man who embodies these primal advantages. Neurologically, the female brain lights up strongest not at the sight of a credit card, but at unpredictability, a subtle flicker of danger wrapped in safety. Dominance translated into emotional independence. The limbic system, the seat of emotion and instinct, craves complexity over comfort, yet men often mistake compliance or convenience for attraction. They think that by removing every challenge, by cushioning her reality with financial stability, they're locking love down. Instead, they smother the very signals that keep her interest blazing. This is the cruel irony hidden in the story of modern romance. The attempt to secure love with money can actually erode its very foundation. Evolutionary psychology teaches us that women's mating strategies are calibrated by two desires: the need for a provider and the desire for a protector, the one who will fight for her and their offspring. But the modern man, conditioned by material success, often fulfills only the provider role superficially. He forgets that real protection, real dominance, comes from a primal aura of strength and spirited independence. Without this, he becomes little more than a wallet with legs, a hollow signal, easy to replace. And here's the secret signal men rarely catch: attraction is about emotional risk and reward. A woman's interest intensifies when a man stakes something intangible, his status not just measured by money, but by confidence under pressure, by the risk he takes in defying social expectations, by the control he exerts over himself rather than his resources. These are the currencies that stir the deep female craving for challenge and passion. Money, in this light, is a dull substitute of commodity, a tired script for desire that women see through instinctively. The neurochemical reality is unforgiving. When a man's presence triggers spikes of norepinephrine and dopamine in her brain, attraction flares. But these spikes arise from tension, unpredictability, and dominance, the very qualities that money can't guarantee. Secure attachment, built from predictable financial comfort, produces oxytocin, the bonding hormone, but without the adrenaline rush of attraction. That bond can cool into mere friendship or security, safe, predictable, uninspiring. And it is this safe, Uninspiring role many men fall into. The silent killer of desire masquerading as love. What men overlook is that in the theater of love, financial success is a backdrop, not the spotlight. The true performance is about dominance of self, mastery of emotional signals, the ability to hold space for challenge and intrigue. It's biological warfare fought in the shadows of the mind and heart, far beyond bank statements. And when a man fails to supply this, no amount of silk or gold can shield him from the slow erosion of her fascination. So why do so many men, despite their efforts to provide and please, feel an inexplicable emptiness when a woman drifts away? Why does their investment go unreciprocated? Or worse, resented? Because they have mistaken the map of attraction for the destination itself. Money is the measure of many things. But when it comes to love, raw, unfiltered, evolutionary love, it is at best a misleading signal, and at worst, a trap. You are left with a haunting question. If not money, what unseen currency truly governs attraction and the fragile ecosystem of love? What primal advantage holds a woman's interest steady through the storms of modern life? It's a secret hidden deep in our biology, an invisible thread men ignore at their peril. And the moment you acknowledge that money is not the fulcrum of attraction, you stand at the edge of a vast, uncharted territory. A labyrinth woven from flickering shadows and silent pulses deep within the female psyche. What comes next is a revelation that shatters comforting myths and replaces them with unsettling truths. Because beneath the veneer of exchanged gifts and financial assurances, there thrives an ancient calculus, far more ruthless and precise. The economy of emotional risk, the currency of unpredictability, the signal of a man's unyielding personal sovereignty. This is where real power whispers, quietly but insistently, and where most men falter without ever knowing why. Think of it this way. Attraction is not a ledger balanced by deposits and withdrawals of money, but a dance of neural symphonies composed long before credit scores were invented. The female brain, infinitely complex and exquisitely tuned, is scanning, always scanning, for the pulse of dominance not in dollars, but in demeanor. It's listening for the rhythm of a man who embodies something more primal than finance. A man who holds himself with a detached command. Who resists the seduction of neediness. Who in the tempest of uncertainty stands unmoved. This is the signal her ancient instincts are wired to crave because it means survival. It means genetic vitality. It means a partner unfazed by the chaos of life. The science here is as unforgiving as it is elegant. Dopamine fires in bursts, jabbing her limbic system awake when a man's behavior defies predictability. It rewards the emotional gamble, the surprise text, the unexpected decision, the calm defiance of societal pressures. Norepinephrine, that sharp edge of adrenaline, spikes when she perceives challenge, dominance, danger contained. These neurochemicals are not coaxed by predictable generosity on demand. They ignite when a man's presence threatens complacency, commands intrigue, tears through the veil of monotony. Money buys luxury and security, but it cannot manufacture this chemical cocktail. And without that cocktail, the slow death of desire begins, a quiet fading that no rose or Rolex can disguise. Yet this biological dance creates a paradox that ensnares many men in a vicious loop. They flood the relationship with comfort, smothering her with reliability, smoothing out every wrinkle of tension, in the earnest hope that love will be secured like a well-kept contract. But in doing so, they erase the very elements that spark attraction, the wild brushstrokes of dominance and unpredictability she craves. Love, in its rawest form, is an emotional paradox. It requires both safety and danger, both surrender and defiance. Provide too much safety without the undercurrent of danger, and love recedes into something pale, an affectionate bond devoid of desire, a friendship masquerading as a romance. This is the invisible battlefield where male risks are currency. To truly captivate, a man must stake not his wallet, but his emotional autonomy, his willingness to be vulnerable and unyielding simultaneously. to defy expectations while maintaining an unwavering center. It is here that confidence transcends surface bravado and becomes a feral, magnetic force. Here, dominance is not shouted from the rooftops of power but felt in the quiet assurance that a man's value is tethered to nothing but his own steadfastness. This profound self-mastery is the primal advantage, a secret advantage that modern culture rarely teaches, yet underpins every potent connection a woman feels. Behind closed doors, in the subtle flickers of eye contact and the charged silence before a word is spoken, women detect this invisible dance. They sense when a man is emotionally available yet not enslaved by her presence, when he can hold space for conflict without collapse, when his world spins with unpredictable energy yet does not shatter. This is the heartbeat of attraction, beating far beneath the material. It is a biological fact that women are drawn not only to the fight for survival but to the artistry of balance, the man who can both protect and provoke, who is both a guardian and a wild card. Without this, rituals of provision become hollow gestures, and men become interchangeable. The emotional landscape grows barren, her eyes scanning for a richer signal that rarely arrives. But what does this mean for the modern man lost in this biological labyrinth? It means that attraction cannot be willed or bought. It means the path forward is not paved with gold but with the jagged stones of personal transformation. It means courting unpredictability within oneself, mastering the silence and the storm, and daring to disrupt the expected script at every turn. It means learning to embrace risk as a form of currency, a vivid declaration that one's value transcends the superficial metrics of financial success. This is the biological truth few women articulate but every one of them feels, a permanent imprint left by the primal urge for a man who is less a provider of comforts and more a herald of emotional complexity and strength. This calls into question everything taught by culture and social convention. It demands that men look beyond their bank balances to the shadows of their own psyche, to those uncharted emotional territories where desire is forged in the heat of conflict and the cool calm of unshakable presence. It forces us to confront the unsettling knowledge that love's fiercest loyalty is not won by compliance or accumulation but by the stakes a man is willing to place on the table, stakes measured in emotional sovereignty, not stimulus checks. The true alpha's power is silent, subtle, a force that resonates with a woman's deepest evolutionary impulses long before words or wallets are exchanged. And so, we return to the question hanging thick in the air. If the currency of attraction is something invisible, something felt rather than seen, how does a man begin to wield that power? How does he learn to broadcast this primal signal in a world obsessed with material measures? This is the challenge whispered in the cold spaces between dates, the quiet test that determines who will command her fascination, and who will fade into the shadows of forgotten suitors. You stand now at the precipice, facing an ancient instinct that prizes dominance not over others, but over oneself, a dominance woven from unpredictability, confidence, and emotional depth. To untangle this secret is to unlock a force far older and more potent than wealth, a force that defines not just who a woman loves, but who she truly cannot resist. The cold truth cuts deeper than any wound of rejection. What a woman senses in a man can never be fully articulated, even to herself. It's an ancient whisper encoded in the folds of her subconscious, a pulse that vibrates beneath her reason, resisting the tidy narratives modern society offers. This is no polite social contract, no currency exchange of superficial favors or transactions. It is a silent language written in the shifting shadows of presence and absence, in the invisible architecture of tension and release. The unseen currency of attraction is not wealth, nor the surface charm of grand gestures. It is the potent signal of emotional sovereignty and unpredictable power, a rare essence that many men never realize they must cultivate within themselves. Imagine the female brain as a finely tuned sensor, evolved over millennia to detect the faintest flicker of vitality in a partner. She doesn't scan resumes, income brackets, or scripted lines. Her limbic system, the primal core where desire and fear intertwine, is hypersensitive to nuances of behavior that reveal whether a man commands his world or is merely adrift within it. Confidence, yes, but not the hollow bravado of superficial assurance. True confidence is carved from the shadows of vulnerability and risk, fueled by a man's ability to remain unshaken when stakes rise. When uncertainty threatens to unravel the script, it's an alchemy of fearlessness and modesty, a magnetic charge born from the tension between impending danger and safety. Here lies the forbidden formula, not in abundance, but in scarcity, not in predictability, but in the thrilling unpredictability that keeps her limbic system electrified. Evolution etched this code deep within us. For countless generations, a woman's survival hinged on identifying a mate who could navigate chaos with composure, who could be an unyielding pillar when storms threatened existence itself. This was not measured in luxury, but in resilience and an instinctual command over internal and external conflict. The neurochemistry of attraction mirrors this truth. Dopamine surges in response to novelty and surprise. Adrenaline flares with the charge of emotional risk, while oxytocin cements attachment, but only once the spark of primal interest has ignited. Without that initial spark, ignited by a man's dance at the edge of predictability, oxytocin's comforting embrace can feel like a cold cage rather than a warm home. This biological paradox breeds a cruel irony that traps many men. They mistake the soothing oxytocin bond, safe, warm, reliable, as the summit of desire, striving to embody a static protector whose predictability will secure a woman's devotion. Yet, the very comfort they build acts as a slow poison, dampening the dopamine rush that fuels passionate fascination. When a man presents as too accessible, too settled, too quietly stable, her brain subconsciously dims the alert to his presence. The thrill recedes, replaced by a dull familiarity, a humdrum background noise against which her attention fades. The female brain craves a paradox, strength that resists her, freedom that challenges her, an edge that ignites the hunt as much as the shelter. And therein lies an invisible battlefield, a psychological territory most men misunderstand. True dominance does not roar from a lion's mane of external symbols like cars or credit, but whispers through the unspoken mastery of self. It manifests in the way a man carries himself when stripped of all trappings. His ability to regulate his fears, to thrive in solitude, to command his own inner world with quiet authority. This self-mastery sends an unbreakable signal that reverberates deep within the female psyche. Here is a man who is fundamentally whole, whose worth is intrinsic, not borrowed from status or possessions. That signal is magnetic because it fulfills the hidden desire for a partner who can shield not only her physical existence but the delicate sanctuary of her emotional survival. Consider the effect of unpredictability in this dance. It is not chaos, but a calibrated tension. A man who is comfortable being himself even when that self defies convention or expectation. Unpredictability in attitude, indecision, in emotion stirs the primal recesses of a woman's mind. It releases a cocktail of neurochemicals that sharpen her focus and excite her anticipation. This is why predictability, although soothing, risks sliding into invisibility. It is what ignites the hunt, beckons the pursuit, and floods the invisible channels of attraction with vibrant life. The man who masters this is not erratic for erratic's sake, but embraces complexity and emotional nuance as the true markers of strength. Someone who refuses to be boxed by societal scripts or transactional roles. This dynamic often feels paradoxical, even cruel, to the men trapped inside it, because the gift that resonates most deeply, the gift of unpredictability and emotional sovereignty, is also the one that demands the greatest vulnerability. To be truly magnetic is to dance on the edge of emotional exposure, to risk rejection, to invite challenge without bending in submission. It is to live with a restless, untamed edge that defies domestication but promises authenticity. This edge frightens, but it also seduces with a dark allure that no amount of money or comfort can replicate. It is the silent challenge embedded in the theater of attraction, Only those men who dare to risk their emotional armor, who show their true, imperfect selves with fierce courage, can command the invisible throne of desire. What does imagine standing on a precipice, the edge of something profound, something that defies the comfortable lies you've been told. What if the very essence of attraction, the invisible lifeblood that pulls a woman toward a man, is not something you negotiate or purchase, but something you awaken deep within yourself? This is no mere debate over preference or personal taste. It's a revelation nestled in the ancient architecture of our biology and psyche. A secret coded in the pulse of your own nerves and the primal hunger of her hidden desires. You see, beneath the polished surface of modern dating, beneath the ritualistic exchanges of texts and tokens, there simmers a powerful disdain and female instinct for predictability dressed as safety. The brain, that ancient organ curved with millennia of survival, hungers not for the bland hum of comfort, but for the electric jolt of uncertainty, the spark that says, "This man is alive, unpredictable, a force that could alter my world." This is not foolish vanity or cruelty. It is the biological fact of attraction's foundation. Women's mating psychology evolved not in quiet valleys of assurance, but under the shadow of danger and the flash of opportunity, the unexpected path that could lead to triumph or loss. At the heart of this lies a neurochemical theater far more intricate than the simple reward of stability. Dopamine, the architect of desire and craving, surges not just with pleasure, but with suspense, a tantalizing dance of risk and possibility. When a man's presence triggers this rush of dopamine, he is no longer just a familiar figure, he becomes an enigma, a challenge wrapped in a riddle. This unpredictability, this refusal to be fully mapped or tamed, is magnetic. It tells her subconscious that he is a living, breathing entity with the power to navigate chaos and create opportunity where others see threat. But attraction is not merely about chaos. It is about the streak of dominance that refuses to be subdued. Dominance not enforced by brute force, but asserted through layers of emotional independence. This dominance is subtle, found in a man who does not kneel before her every wish, who holds his territory gently but firmly, who masters himself before seeking to master the world. It signals a biological advantage, the promise that he can protect not only her body, but her psyche from the erosion of neediness, fear, and dependency. For a woman's brain, wired as it is for survival, this is the signal of a true protector, one whose strength lies in restraint and will, not control. The oxytocin that arises from security and attachment builds bonds. Yes, but it is dopamine that fuels the wildfire of desire. Herein lies the emotional paradox men so often misunderstand. To kindle passion, one must risk destabilizing security. Love is not built in the flatline comfort of predictability. It sharpens at the edges where uncertainty grazes the skin and creates sparks of anticipation and challenge. This is why the man who is too available, too accommodating, too perfectly steady becomes not a fortress but a cage, safe, yet stifling. She does not crave a sanctuary constructed from predictability. She craves a sanctuary that embraces wildness. A sanctuary shaped by the presence of a man who can be both her refuge and her wild card. Consider the evolutionary logic encrypted within this dynamic. The ancestral woman who selected a mate was balancing the need to secure resources with the imperative to pass on strong genes. She needed a provider, yes, but more urgently, a protector who was resilient, courageous, unpredictable in his capacity to survive storms and conquer challenges. A man who was merely a well of resources, but lacked that primal spark, was a dead end in the biological race. Today, the arena has changed, but the circuitry has not. Women's attraction systems still wake to the scent of that ancient promise, the promise of a man who, beyond his bank account, exhibits the emotional grit and complexity that signals legendary fitness. This is where modern men stumble into a trap of their own making. They equate love with preservation, with safety netting and emotional predictability. But biology demands something far more raw and complex. It demands attention that plays out in the subtle shifts of behavior, the confidence that lets a man wander emotionally without losing himself, the capacity to hold space for vulnerability without collapsing into neediness. These are the invisible currencies of attraction, the signals that circulate beneath surface conversations and public facades, the code that no money can buy but every woman is wired to read. In real-world relationships, this biology transforms into a delicate dance of approach and retreat, of subtle power plays where interest waxes and wanes like the tide. The man who recognizes this truth wields emotional risk like a sword, carving paths through routine to create moments of raw connection and electric challenge. He understands that sometimes, the greatest proof of love is not in holding tight, but in letting go, letting her chase, letting her wonder, letting her question. Because in that questioning, in that slight uncertainty, desire stokes its hungry flames. What remains is a profound truth that humbles yet empowers. The male who can embody this primal dance, confident in his unpredictability, dominant in his emotional sovereignty, and mysterious in his self-mastery, awakens a force older than words. A force that defies the commodification of affection. He becomes the living signal, the biological advantage, the unspoken solution to the puzzle of love's elusive grip. And in this realization, victory is not a trophy won through display, but a constant, fluid state of being desired at the core of their evolutionary design. But here lies the haunting whisper beneath this knowledge. Mastery of this invisible currency demands courage, the courage to destabilize comfort, to expose vulnerability within strength, to dance on. If money is not the king of attraction, what then commands the throne? What ancient, invisible force pulses beneath the surface of every glance, every unspoken word, every silent hesitation? The truth, the forbidden knowledge cloaked in shadows, is this: male magnetic power is rooted not in currency but in calibrated unpredictability, in the primal dance of risk and reward that triggers an irreversible ignition within her brain. It is a force so subtle, so primal, that it bypasses any conscious filter, sinking deep into the emotional wiring designed to separate fleeting comfort from lasting desire. You see, women's attraction systems are finely tuned detectors, evolutionary receivers scanning not for what appears stable, but for what hints at strength beneath chaos. This is not strength as a show of brute force or loud dominance, but a resilient, unshakable kind of strength, the kind that endures uncertainty without faltering, that commands respect not through control of the external world, but mastery over one's internal compass. It is the signal of a man who risks being vulnerable, who stakes his emotional currency on truths deeper than promises, who knows how to hold tension like a drawn bow, inviting but never yielding completely. This is the language that shakes those ancient neurochemicals awake. Consider dopamine, the molecule of desire itself. It surges not in response to predictable scripts, but to surprises wrapped in safety, to mystery unmasked with honesty. When a man's behavior breaks the expected pattern, when he mixes confidence with genuine emotional availability, strength with softness, dominance with respect, he triggers dopamine in a way that no expensive gift or comfortable routine ever could. This burst is the biological whisper that says, here lies a challenge worth the chase. A story not yet fully told. A risk that promises reward. It is this flicker of risk, not stability, that creates emotional electricity, and it is this electricity that binds. Contrast this with oxytocin, the hormone of comfort and bonding, the glue of long-term attachment. Oxytocin builds bridges, yes, but it can also be a double-edged sword. When a man offers only predictability, only the safe harbor of material provision, he settles for a role that evokes friendship, partnership, or worse, obligation. Oxytocin tethers, but it does not inflame. It does not set hearts racing. Without the adrenaline-fueled spark of dopamine, those bonds fade into stasis, quietly eroding into routine, then indifference. The emotional paradox, the great psychological riddle hidden within female attraction, is that the very things that signal security can simultaneously snuff out desire. Safety without challenge is the slow death of fascination. A man who is always available, always predictable, always compliant creates an environment where her limbic system relaxes, but not into passion. Instead, it settles into comfort. And women, wired to seek both shelter and storm in the males they find valuable, unconsciously register this comfort as a loss of edge, a diminishing advantage on the battlefield of attraction. At a deeper level, the female subconscious craves what evolutionary psychologists call genetic fitness. But this isn't a certificate to be displayed. It is a story told through signals of autonomy and emotional independence. Men who radiate self-possession, who carry the invisible armor of their own emotional sovereignty, send a signal that their genes can survive the unpredictable fluctuations of life. This signal transcends salary figures or social status. It nods to something ancestral, an unspoken assurance that he is not a man to be controlled or tamed wholly, but a force to be respected, challenged, and embraced in his complexity. In practice, this means that the men who ignite and sustain desire do so by embodying a dynamic tension, a beguiling paradox of closeness and distance, of commitment and mystery, of care interlaced with confident unpredictability. They do not give everything away at once. They hold parts of themselves in reserve. Not out of deceit, but out of a profound understanding that emotional risk fuels the chemistry of attraction. This emotional economy demands courage, the courage to be vulnerable and yet hold one's ground, to engage and yet provoke, to exist as a constant, yet unpredictable presence. When a man masters this, he becomes a living narrative, one that the female mind cannot put down. He sparks the primal circuits wiring desire and dominance, setting off cascades of norepinephrine that translate to that heady feeling of excitement mixed with trust. This is the nuanced warfare of love, a biological fact disguised as emotional mystery. Attempting to replicate this with money alone is a foolish strategy akin to painting a vibrant masterpiece with a single color. The canvas remains incomplete, the picture, inevitably, fades. The consequences of misunderstanding this dynamic ripple through countless modern relationships. Men who believe financial provision is the ultimate key often find themselves blindsided by fading interest, bewildered by emotional distance that they cannot buy back. Women, wired by evolutionary impulses, retreat from the dull certainty of financial comfort into the arms, or sometimes into the fantasies, of men who ignite these deeper emotional engines. The silent signals of risk-taking, emotional autonomy, and dynamic tension become beacons, impossible to ignore. And so, the dance of attraction is rewritten, not as a ledger of credits and expenses, but as an intricate interplay of psychological and biological currencies. The rise and fall of desire hinge on who controls the emotional narrative, who dares to hold space for uncertainty, who refuses to be fully predictable in an increasingly predictable world. In the end, the real power lies in mastery of self, the ability to wield one's inner tumult not as a deficiency, but as a source of magnetic alert, to understand that the male code of attraction is less about acquisition and more about presence, less about accumulation and more about surrender and resistance intertwined. This is a truth so primal, so profoundly unsettling, that society's simple narratives about love and success collapse under its weight. Ask yourself now, if the deepest female craving is for a man who disturbs comfort with challenge, who carries within him the exquisite tension between vulnerability and strength, then what does it mean to be truly magnetic in an age that worships safety and predictability? The answer